I'm an addict. My name's Joanne. Can you guys all help me open up this workshop with a moment of silence, followed by a silent prayer for those who know it and care to join? God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, welcome to the H&I Task Force Workshop of the Southeast Zone, and today we are going to be discussing COVID, H&I before, during, and after COVID. And our first presenter that I have today is Tom Kay, because one of our big challenges, and it's been discussed throughout the day, is getting back into facilities that have closed down as a result of COVID. And some facilities that will not let us back in, even after COVID has ended because of the lack of communication. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Tom, and he's going to give us his presentation.
Greetings. My name is Tom. I'm an addict, and I've been doing H&I for 31 years now. And let me just dive right in. Bringing the NA program online, and we're also going to talk about stuff that's not online. So what I'm going to cover today is the big one, how you get started, especially when you've been told, no, you can't come in. How do you get in then? And if you do get in, you've got some technical issues. What do you need to do there? How you want to deal with security, volunteer recruitment. Someday I may find an H&I subcommittee that says, we've got all the people we need, we don't need any more, but I haven't yet. You know, how to keep doing literature delivery and reentry programs. This is a new area that we can carry the message in. I really want to talk a bit about that. And I'm going to briefly discuss PRISM tablet and e-literature. I think there's a whole nother presentation on that. And what we can do after COVID. So let's get going. By the way, feel free to raise your hand or ask questions. This is a two-way thing. So how do you get started? Especially when you've been told, no, you can't come in. You need to develop some type of an inside champion, sorry. That can be the chaplain, it can be a volunteer coordinator, it can be the community services liaison, whoever it is. It can even be a correctional officer that you used to know. Some places I've gone in, I couldn't get in any other way. I've gone to some of the publicly elected officials and asked them. But you want to, any of these people that's an inside champion can't actually make the decision to get you in. What they can do is help you set up a meeting with the decision maker. Often somebody on high has said, there shall be no more, and you can't even get to that person. Your inside champion helps you get to that person. Ideally, you want a meeting that includes the warden, the information technology head, they have one, and the head of security. You'd also like to get the watch commander and whoever was your champion, especially if it's a volunteer coordinator. But the top three that are underlined there, that's the big deal, because any one of those three can shoot it down. If they're all three in the same room and they're all kind of looking at each other and get a chance to shake their head yes or no, you have a very good chance of getting a decision. Otherwise, it'll be maybe come back next month, and that can happen for quite a while. But you get started if you can. And this is one that Denise did. You'll hear from her shortly. Go big. Go to the governor's office like she did. I went to the state's attorney general. I've gone to the director of prisons. I've gone to the state legislature. And go, look, we really want to help, and do a PR presentation. And this is a focused PR presentation that says, we want something in particular, and it's successful. My personal experience is you can get into a public official easier than you can get into the director of prisons. Public, especially if that public official is up for election. Now you go in, one of the questions that we get asked is, what's the numbers? You know, what's your recovery rate? We get, you know, we have these people coming in that says, we have this much recovery rate or blah, blah, blah. And of course, we don't have a great answer for that. So I'll give you one that I've used successfully. And that is, we're an anonymous program. You can't make a statistically reliable sample from an anonymous program, no matter what you're doing. But I can give you the numbers that we started in 1953, and we were small. In 1960, we only had one meeting, and now we've got over 76,000 meetings. That's a number we can actually publish. It's out there publicly on na.org. And this is our success rate. So it's a good thing to push in there. Well, let's suppose you get the information and you get the approval. Now you have to deal with the technology. And let me preface this by saying, if your prisons or anything like we have going out here in the West, you aren't getting into any physical meetings hardly at all. We have one prison I know of in the Phoenix area that's allowing some in-person meetings, and that's it. So most of this is going to be, and I don't need to tell you how to do an in-person meeting. You guys know that. But if you're doing an online meeting, your access may be varied. There's Wi-Fi, internet, telephone, and good old mail. You know, Denise is going to do steps behind the walls, and that's a perfectly good approach. Do them all. You know, when I was using, I never had too many drugs, so there's never too many ways to carry the message. One size does not fit all. You know, these are just, I'm going to give you a variety of ways on how you can carry the message, and you're going to need to take it to your local area and region and decide how you want to adapt to it. You got permission, you got access. And then they say, well, we want you to use Microsoft Teams or whatever it is. Okay. The facility is going to select the app. If they let you, you know, we're all pretty proficient at Zoom, but that's a go-to application. But we may need to learn something. That's okay. Now, if you have the Wi-Fi and it's sufficient, that's usually a jail setup. Prisons often don't have Wi-Fi, or even, you know, some of them out here have Wi-Fi suppressors. But if you have Wi-Fi in your jail and you've got this volunteer coordinator and they're going, I don't really know what to do. I've been told to do this. Help them. Tell them, first of all, go get a cart. If the volunteer coordinator starts trying to get into one of the rooms and he's got, you know, an armful of extension cords and a projector and a laptop, and he's trying to struggle with it, get a cart. A laptop with Wi-Fi capability. You want a projector so that it will show the meetings against the wall, or a screen, so that all the inmates can see without being too close to each other. Probably going to need speakers, and of course, the necessary cables and an extension cord to get to power. This may come up in your very first meeting. What do you need? Be ready with an answer. Microphones are optional. They can come up to the laptop and speak, or they may put a microphone out there where they don't have to move. If you're in a prison system, on the other hand, there's probably going to be an education room, and it'll have all the stuff that's there. And again, if inmates are allowed to speak, they can come up to the microphone one at a time. But they'll have pretty much all the stuff in there. But you may get the situation where there's no Wi-Fi, no internet, and they're saying, no, you just can't do it. Be a little flexible. What about a phone meeting? You know, in Australia, they had a guy show up and call the regional office and saying, I'm up in the Northwest Territories, where's my nearest meeting? And they told him, and he says, that's 2 days drive. I can't get to meetings like that. So he started NA by phone. So phone meetings of various sorts have been going on actually for a good decade. And you can do an H&I meeting by phone. Now they may have, you know, say, no, you can't do that either. Well, there are speaker CDs. How about if you get somebody to get people in a room and play a speaker CD? In Colorado, they did something quite interesting. They set and videotaped 13 H&I meetings, one on each of the steps and one on sponsorship. Recorded it, put it on a DVD, and the warden did allow that to be played. Actually, they have a closed system network there, but it's physically unreachable from the outside, so it's unhackable. So you have to actually bring in a DVD, but they'll play it. And that's been sufficiently successful. They're on their third set of DVDs. You know, new ways to carry the message. So people talk about security, and it's going to come up, especially when you first ask to get in. You want to make as few changes as possible. Everybody in the prison system is watching how this online stuff is happening. And if there's a security issue, it's not going to just affect your local prison. It's going to, you know, it's going to go all over the United States. So be careful. Use only NA volunteers that are already cleared. Use the standard volunteer clearance procedures. They may need to actually develop one for you. You know, that's pretty common where they can develop an online procedure. Now, you might run into a facility like a jail that has fewer restrictions, but there's not many. Prisons and jails often, you know, say, well, how am I going to make sure that the person that is cleared is the same person on the screen? That may be a question that comes up by the security officer at the first time. Okay, so they have either there's various clearance procedures, and some of them actually generate a badge. I've got my own badge here. But on the other hand, you may just be able to hold up a driver's license, but be prepared for the question. Now, for those of you who are old H&I people, once you've been going into the facility for a while and we know you, then it becomes a lot simpler. But those first few meetings, they're going to make sure that you're you. A comment on the treatment centers now. If you have an inmate, a client who wants to remain anonymous, they just turn off their video. Occasionally you'll get a director of a treatment center, well, I think this might be a HIPAA violation. Okay, have them put just the name of the treatment center up on Zoom and leave the video off. And they can leave the thing on mute, and you can carry the message that way.
So Tom, I'd like to interrupt for a minute and just give
Sure.
an information out that I know, okay? The clients are allowed to break their own anonymity. In any treatment facility that uses HIPAA, the clients can sign a release of information form, which then would allow them to attend the meeting because they are basically holding the facility harmless for being at the meeting. And this is legal. It's not illegal. Any facility that tries to say, no, they can't, no. There is a form that they have that they use for when clients go to doctors and other things that they have to sign. It's a release of information form. Your doctor will give it to you. If you want to send your information to someone else, it's the same exact form. So a lot of times they will say, oh, it's HIPAA, but we know that the clients can sign a release of information, which will allow them to attend the presentation. Thank you, Tom. Go ahead.
Thank you. She's absolutely right. And you want to get in there and start. If you start with the video off, okay. But over time, you can begin to get a little more of a connection with the facility, and they're much more likely to allow you to do more. A lot of treatment centers are also simply going to outside meetings. But some of them want us to bring in an H&I type meeting, and we can do that. The other thing about security, people go, well, you can't get drugs in there, so why is security such a big deal? It's a big deal. The security people are concerned with unauthorized people passing messages, specifically gang-related messages or information used to smuggle contraband. I'll give you an example. I used to smuggle drugs into Joliet prison in Illinois. And all I needed was information on where the landscape crew was going to be the following day. And a visitor would go in and they'd actually just use hand signals to pass the information. So they're actually concerned about stuff like this. There was enough that happened in California around gang-related messages that they shut off the ability for any volunteers to go to more than one facility. You had to, if you stopped going to a facility, you had to wait an entire year before you go to another facility. So they really care about that. So your panel meetings need to be encrypted, password protected, and all that information needs to be handled carefully. You don't want to pass it out to the entire PR committee, just the ones that are cleared for that meeting. And you don't want to pass it out around the jail or prison too far either. So, like I was saying earlier, there's never too many volunteers. We've actually, in our region, been able to recruit volunteers that we could never get before, because there's less time involved. There's no travel. So people that didn't have a car and were fairly far out, kind of in an isolated spot, they nevertheless had internet and they were happy to be of service. The other thing that can happen is that we used to be able to go online, we used to be able to go in person, and we go into a pod, and then the next week we could go into a different pod because those two pods were segregated. You can have video equipment brought into both pods, and then you can reach more people. Now, let me give the example of how that was done here. We didn't have enough people that were cleared and wanted to volunteer to do women's prisons. And this was a problem. So we collected all the people in the region that were cleared, that were women and to go in. And we've had 6 women in the, and by the way, we're a very large region. We have the whole state of New Mexico, the Four Corners area, and West Texas of El Paso. So we're geographically very large, but we have very few people. And we have a lot of prisons. California sends a lot of prisoners over to us. So we got all of the women's prisons in the state of New Mexico to dial into one meeting. And now we can reach all of those prisons with fewer people. And one of those folks, is in a wheelchair, and there's other people who have mobility issues, and they could never really volunteer because a lot of jails and prisons aren't set up for handicapped, and they didn't really want to have quite that long a drive. Some of the prisons here are almost a full day's drive away. The other thing that's happened is that we actually got permission. We had to do a PR presentation to do this. We got permission to allow people from out of state. Texas was very difficult to deal with regard to H&I, and they had extra volunteers there. So we said, come on over, and we were able to get that worked out. So we're able to and let me give you some numbers here. We have almost doubled the number of facilities that we reach now than we had pre-COVID by doing these methods. We didn't just get back to where we used to be, we exceeded it by quite a bit. And of course, you still want to maintain contact with all these facilities, even if they told you no, and they'll generally take donated literature. Make sure you do that. And if they have got requirements, like some require this to be mailed in, they won't even let you drop it off at the front door. But if you're dropping off literature and you're doing an online meeting, make sure they know about it. But check with the staff first, because it can take even longer now than it was before, where something that was delivered actually winds up in a library and available to the inmates. Of course, there's speaker CDs, but another piece is to make sure you let the facility know they can print a lot of literature free of charge. They may not be willing to buy it, but they have a separate account for printing. And that can be pretty useful. See, NA is culturally adaptable. We're in over 91 languages now. That's amazing. So make sure you let the chaplain or any of the substance abuse counselors know that if they have somebody that they're working with whose English or Spanish is not their current native language, they can go to NA and print quite a bit of literature in their language. And it's free of charge, just download and print. I've had a chaplain call me up and thank me for that piece of information, because he had somebody from Thailand in there and who really wanted some recovery, and we were able to get it to him. Reentry programs. This is a big deal. It really is. We've had great success in this. So first of all, what's a reentry program? All of the treatment centers, jails, and prisons all have an individual or a team that works with people just as they leave the facility and go outside. And they generally hand them some stuff like, oh, here's your food bank, here's where you can get a place to stay, here's jobs. Well, we've been able to work with the reentry program people to say, you can go to the NA website and download our meeting schedules and get a fresh current meeting schedule and give it to them. And that's been just amazing. It's really worked. I had a phone line volunteer call me up and go, I just had a phone message from somebody, and they said they're standing in the parking lot just outside the prison, and they want to know where to get to a meeting. I had, that made my month. So one of the things is that they can print out all kinds of stuff besides that, or you can drop it off to them if it's not too far. Some of our prisons here are, like I said, a full day's drive from the nearest place that has a meeting. So it helps. And it also helps if you're H&I is a little strapped for money, so that they, you can reduce your copy fees. And of course, make sure it has a hotline number. I'm not going to go a great deal into this because there's other presentations here, but NA has e-literature on prison tablets. A lot of the prisons now have electronic tablets. They're not allowed to get physical mail, but they can. They've set up email systems and tablets. And of course, it's a money system. It's another way for prisons to make money. So this is one of the waves of the future, and NA will indeed work with you on getting that done. It requires contracts, and if your facility that you would like to go into or has trouble going into has tablets, get a hold of me and I'll contact you to connect you up with the people who have done this and worked through the prison system and NAS and the GTO and JPay people. You have to have a three-party contract in order to do it. But NA's glad to help. And there's a couple of places they're actually using tablets for steps behind the walls. So making sure I leave time for Denise. What can the subcommittees do? There's the online H&I panel meetings, and of course, in person. There's phone meetings, CD and DVD, donate literature, reentry programs, printing the meeting schedules, e-literature. But maintain the relationship, however it is. And persistence. It took me a little over a year of being annoying about once a month before we were able to get into some of these places. Got to have some patience with it. But it also means opportunity. We've been able to reach places that we just couldn't get to before. And I want to give a couple of success stories here. Australia and Brazil decided they would go online pre-COVID. So they didn't lose a beat. And to give you a sense of it, if you're in Brazil, this one I know, and you're in prison there, you can go to an NA meeting every single day. And how they did that was they organized the areas to rotate hosting a meeting, an H&I meeting, and they have all the prisons dial in to that meeting. And every prison has a rotation. Australia has done the same way. And the Latin American has gone, Mexico in particular, really went crazy. I did a PR presentation in Veracruz, and I was just astonished. 2 weeks later, they had us in a meeting. I've never seen a Department of Corrections move that fast. But right now, in the zone, which covers from Mexico to Chile, there are over 52 prisons that meet a week, and they've only got about a dozen volunteers that deal with all that. They're doing joint international H&I panels with translators. So we can carry this message online, and we can do some of this after COVID. Would you like to be a speaker in Costa Rica? That type of thing can be arranged. There's some really amazing stuff we can do. We can reach remote prisons where we couldn't. And one of the things I always thought was, what about a special event? During the World Service Conference, we have a lot of prisons that hook in. We could do that on a regular basis, maybe. A special event where you got an NA panel that has maybe a circuit level speaker, broadcasting from their home, no travel costs for them, and it could reach the entire world. We can dream big. And with that, I'm going to leave my information up there. You can contact me. And if you got technical, I'm a retired telecommunications engineer. So if you've got a prism that says, well, I've got this really weird technical issue, I might be able to help. I don't know. But in any case, I'm willing to give this presentation to any of your groups locally that, you may be saying they're going, well, this is all really good, but so-and-so needs to see it. I'll be happy to represent. I've been presenting all over the world these days. And with that, I'm going to stop and turn it over to Denise, unless there's some questions.
Yeah. Well,
Anybody
Tom,
have questions?
Thank you, Tom. Yeah. Anybody have any questions? Yeah, we have a question here, Tom. Go ahead.
Hi, family. My name is Angie. I'm an addict. Can you hear me?
Can you
Just
hear us?
barely.
Angie, come on up to the mic. Thank you.
So one of the challenges, so it's not a question, but more of, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you just fine, and I love challenges.
Awesome. And one of the challenges in our area is the HIPAA issue. So I did a little bit of research to bring the answer to my area H&I committee. And the National Health Services has actually relaxed a lot of the HIPAA stuff for Zoom meetings on this. And as we were speaking here, I went and looked it up again so I knew what I was talking about. Zoom actually now has Zoom for healthcare and 12-step fellowships.
Yes, they do.
So I'm like, HIPAA solved, which is now HIPAA compliant.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Well, thank you for giving us that info.
I was like, oh, I
We
just solved my
appreciate
problem.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions before I bring Denise on? Tom, thank you so, so much. It's an honor and a privilege working with you. And I'm looking forward to our continued working together as we move forward to Russia and Israel. For those
Yes,
who
we
don't
are.
know, on March 12th, we will be participating in an international H&I and public information workshop with Russia and Israel. And they actually have questions for how we do things here, and they want us to ask them questions about what they do there. And we're going to be doing an information exchange, and Tom is facilitating that. So thank you so much, Tom.
I'm one of the facilitators. Alex
Yes.
is the one driving that.
You and Alex, I know. You guys doing a great job. All right. So our next presenter is a wonderful young lady from the Gold Coast area of South Florida, and her name is Denise. So without further ado, we're going to give you Denise. You're on, girl.
Hi, everyone.
Come on, girl.
Hi, I'm an addict named Denise, and I am from the Gold Coast area.
Get closer to your mic because we can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna try and get closer. All right, hi everyone, I'm an addict named Denise, and I'm from the Gold Coast area in South Florida. And I am excited to be here. I am a member of H&I. When I came into the program, that's where I got connected. And then from there, I was asked to join the Inmate Step Writing Guide Subcommittee of Gold Coast area. So I'm going to put up a slide. I hope that it gives you some good information. And I'm going to try and see if I can share it right here. Can everyone see it?
Yes, we can see it just fine.
All right, good. Okay, so like I said, I'm with the Inmate Step Writing Guide of Gold Coast area of NA. And yeah, okay, so it's what I want to talk about is that our subcommittee, they got with some people from the Gold Coast area before I came on board. They saw a presentation at the Last World in Orlando. And so they worked with, they found out about how, I believe it was the Connecticut region as well as San Diego, how they were doing this program called the Inmate Step Writing Guide. So again, what this is for us, you know, they worked alongside with sponsorship behind the wall, and it's the closest thing to written sponsorship we can offer within our guidelines and traditions until the incarcerated addict is able to go to regular open meetings and find a regular sponsor. Okay, sorry. Okay, so our subcommittee was started in 2018. The group that started the meeting, they passed the policy through our areas group. And then our next task was to get the correctional facilities to approve and bring the program to the inmates. This is where I joined. So the committee was created, policy was written, and they asked me to come on and be the secretary. So, you know, at that point, you know, my task was to get in touch with all the correctional facilities, you know, to get them to bring the program to the inmates. So what I did is I went on to the FBOP and the FDOC, and that's Federal Bureau of Prisons, and then the Florida Department of Corrections website. And what I did was I contacted each facility, warden, chaplain, to get the program introduced into their facility. And how we did that, or how I did that too, was I just basically went on each one of the websites, I wrote an email, and then I just blind copied. I blind copied every warden, every chaplain, you know, from the region, from, you know, from each area, just anyone, you know, that would listen to me. And, you know, and I heard Tom say in his presentation, be persistent. So, you know, that's what I continued to do in the beginning. So, and that's when I went ahead and wrote to the governor of Florida. You know, I worked in retail, I'm going to tell you, for many years. So I always knew that if you went to the top, you were going to get what you needed. So that's, I guess, where I got the idea to write to the governor. And, you know, I asked for approval of the program, and we had to fill out an application, and it was approved for all facilities in the state of Florida. And it definitely, you know, when I was able to present that piece of paper to the wardens and chaplains, you know, they listened a little bit more. You know, they were ready to listen, and they were open. And I too have a little piece in there about that. I didn't cross out my last name, but that's all right. So if we look at the state of Florida here, this is what I actually looked at, and the number of actual prisons in Florida. So for federal prisons, I believe in the nation, there's 122 institutions. The state of Florida has 8 facilities. And the Florida Department of Corrections, just in the state of Florida alone, we have 143 facilities statewide. You know, some of them being major institutions, some of them are private, some of them are, you know, work camps. But again, I reached out to each one of them. And so what happened was, these are the facilities that, you know, that right now that we're corresponding with. From the federal prison, we're corresponding with Coleman, and their capacity is 7,500 male inmates. We're corresponding with Mariana, even though they have a capacity of 110, I mean, 1,110. We're not getting as many letters, but I'll go a little bit more into, you know, about Coleman. State prisons, there's a couple that we're working with, you know, that we started with, we get some mail from. The Women's Reception Center has now become a bigger facility for us, as far as, you know, we're getting, we probably have about 25 women that we're corresponding with out of that facility. I just put this in here. These are some of our requirements to become a sponsor. You know, our sponsors have to have 2 years clean, they have to be active in recovery, and they have had to work up through the 5th step of Narcotics Anonymous, and then just be willing to help an addict that's incarcerated through the mail. I give a little bit of information of, you know, top line, how the correspondence writing process is done. And how it's done is once the facility, so once either the warden or the chaplain, they approve the program, they'll post a flyer to the inmates, and then, you know, telling the inmates about our subcommittee, and it has our PO box. And so what they can do is they can write to us and request a sponsor. And then once the inmate writes to us, we send them a welcome letter with more detailed information about our program. And then we give them 3 different assignments. But what I want to go back is when I talked about Coleman, we actually got connected with the reentry coordinator. So he was very excited about the program. And again, Tom talked about being persistent, because before COVID, you know, when I was sending these emails on a regular basis, you know, every 3 months, and sometimes getting a hit from either one warden or one chaplain, you know, responding back. I got a response back from the warden from Coleman, and he connected me with the reentry coordinator. Well, we went back and forth for a while. COVID hit, didn't hear from him. And, you know, we really weren't getting much mail at this point. You know, in the beginning, right before COVID, we got some inmates writing to us. And then really once COVID hit, it stopped. So once it stopped, you know, I went ahead and wrote back to the reentry coordinator of Coleman, and sent him all the information as far as all the literature we use, how the program actually works, you know, what we do, what we don't do. Very transparent as far as just being very transparent on everything that we do. And he actually, what he does is, I'm going to say every other month, he puts up a new flyer. He has a virtual, I guess, message board. And in Coleman, there's, I want to say 7 different facilities, you know, whether it's max, mid, low, camps. And he puts that, he puts that flyer up every other month. And when he does, we get a big influx of letters from the inmates. So, you know, again, it's having to be persistent, continuing to work with either the chaplain, you know, whoever the connection is, because, you know, we have found in other facilities, you know, maybe that we got a flyer up and we started getting some letters, you know, who knows if that flyer gets taken down, you know, then the new inmates or just other inmates don't know about it. But because, you know, because we have our, the reentry coordinator at Coleman putting it up every other month, we're now corresponding with over 107 inmates. We have 35 inmates that are working steps. We have 22 members that have been through orientation and then are just willing to sponsor. And, you know, like when I say right now, we're corresponding with over 107 inmates. Some inmates come on board and then they stop. So these are the ones we're corresponding with right now. But, you know, we could have, you know, touched many, many more inmates. So here I just have our flyer up talking about our orientation and our subcommittee meeting that we do once a month. And we actually as well started in the beginning, we just took members from the Gold Coast area. But because we're on Zoom now and we don't meet in person, and because the need became great, we began to be able to reach out to other areas and, you know, and ask for people to sponsor. Everything is done through mail. Everything goes to a PO box. Everything that comes in from the PO box. And when the inmate writes, I can, you know, I pick up that letter at the PO box. And then I can scan that letter and send it to the person that's sponsoring them. So, we don't have to meet in person to receive the mail. Everything goes through email. So, it is a lot more manageable. And Tom also gave me a few suggestions to make it even more manageable. So let me see if so that's all that I have. And my information is here. I know after the whole thing that Joanne wanted to leave some room open for questions, but I put the inmate step running guide at goldcoastna.org if you have any questions or if you need any more information. Thank you.
Denise, thank you so much. I appreciate your service and your commitment to the fellowship of the addict who still suffers. You really are a true soldier for NA. We thank you. Okay, anybody have a question for Denise or have anything they'd like to ask her? No questions? Well, we just thank you then, Denise. Nobody has any questions for you. But hopefully we've generated some support for your committee. And yeah, there is definitely a need for more members. And like Denise said, you don't have to live in Florida. So if you like to communicate by mail and help somebody who's in prison out, reach out to Denise. Okay, so we've now come to the portion. John, you have a question?
Well, the question is more to this meeting. I noticed a lot of people taking pictures of the slides, and I just wondered if both of these slideshows going to be available to us or?
Eventually, my understanding is that this is all being recorded, and I believe Dennis is going to be transferring it all. So it's just going to take a while for some of this stuff to be available. It's not going to be available immediately. So I believe some people taking the pictures because they want it now. They don't want to wait for it to come out.
Yeah, the meetings are being recorded. The first slideshow is available from Tom at public relations at riogrande.org, and then I don't know if Denise is offering her slideshow as well.
Yeah, Tom will email you his presentation if you're interested in having that. And I'm pretty sure that Denise will also email you her presentation if you're interested in having that as well. So thank you again. All right, so now I've come to the portion where I'm going to ask if there are any H&I members in this group tonight that would like to come up and share either some of their experiences or some of their challenges that they're having. Does anybody here want to do that? Because we have time. Mary Quinn?
Am I supposed to share?
Yeah, you're supposed to, Mary Quinn.
I thought you would introduce me.
Well, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. Her name is Mary Quinn. She's the vice chair of the Georgia Region H&I, and she's a very fantastic woman. And I'm going to introduce her. Come on up, Mary.
Thank you. I'm going to come up.
Mary, come over here.
I have a loud
I have a
voice,
seat for you right here.
And for those of you who are in the room, like, it's really nice to see all your faces. I'm a bit amazed, to be honest, with the diversity of geography here. Like, I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect how many people would make such a concerted effort to come. So for all of you out of towners, like, it's awesome to have you in Atlanta, and I'm definitely an addict. And our Georgia Region H&I chair is on the Zoom. His name is Marcus.
Hi, Marcus.
And he's out there in the ethers, and we'll be sharing with you in just a moment. And I'm not going to take a lot of your time, but I did want to thank first Joanne. She doesn't toot her own horn very much, but until Joanne, we did not have an H&I subcommittee at the zonal level anywhere, like planetary. That didn't exist. And so to have this resource that gives us the cohesiveness to sit in a room together, like every workshop I've attended today, I've been blown away by, I'm like, wow, everybody has really different kind of scenarios they're dealing with. Like, there's a lot of different stuff going on. And so thank you. Yes,
My
sincerely.
pleasure.
So I am the co-chair of the Georgia Region H&I Subcommittee. We serve the state of Georgia. Prior to that, I was the secretary, and prior to that, I was a member at large. For me, for this particular addict, I learn as I move up in service. And so it's been really, really important for me to grow incrementally, because I would have been a lost little goose with her head cut off if I had just jumped in here right now. And I think I've learned a lot specifically with H&I about the relationships that we work with. We have a bridge program and a bridge program coordinator. Her name is Sherry. She is also on. And our bridge program is basically a contact program for individuals, former prison residents who have gotten out recently. So this reentry program Tom talked about a lot, it was kind of our version of building something like that before the reentry program started to formalize. And so it's amazing. So we have had a lot historically going on, and then COVID and the pandemic hit and everything got locked down. And NA responded great, you guys. I mean, let's be honest, we're all sitting in here, we're all clean. We still know how to carry a clear NA message. And equally, it was kind of freaking weird, right? I mean, like not expected. And so I think we're individually dealing with that and collectively dealing with that in our personal recovery, in our home groups, in our areas, and then in the region. And as you all know, as a region, we serve our areas who serve their groups, who serve their individual addicts. And that circles back to us individually. And so it's really like, how do we serve right now? What do our areas need? Because on the one hand, it's like we don't want to lose our existing relationships with corrections departments. And Marcus will talk about that a little bit more. And on the other hand, we've got areas that have total discontinuation of service. You know, they're like, I know we had a subcommittee before, but I don't know if there's any documentation of anything anywhere. And I don't know who we served or who the contact was or what. And we have no members to serve because half the time for H&I specifically, all the facilities shut down. So all those trusted servants went somewhere else. And so there's this build back of the energy and the spirit that is our service. Because as Joanne spoke of earlier, if you've served in a facility one time, you know the thing that happens. And then that thing happens and you're lit up and it's like, this is giving me life. And so I have personally felt a commitment. I felt a whole personally, and I've felt a commitment to serve the other individuals who have been serving because I know their personal recovery depended on that service commitment. And so now what are they doing? And we've seen PR and phone lines and things come up that have really helped out. You know, I personally served on a convention committee and programming, and that carried me through. And I met all these people all over the world, and that was awesome. But let's talk about H&I, right? So hospitals and institutions. So hospitals are obviously like a hotbed for COVID, right? So like they're like, we got fish to fry that we can't talk about Narcotics Anonymous right now. And then we have institutions. And in the state of Georgia, the way that we work, and I'm so like, if Tom, I can only tell you, Tom, you're also on the famous list for me. I have promoted your presentation like crazy. So Tom's presentation leaves no excuses.
No stone unturned.
There's no excuse after watching that, bottom line. It's like, we got to have willingness to show up to these places and say, you could pick A, B, C, D, or E, and here's what we're going to do, and do it consistently with the same people. Nothing to hide, nothing to lose, nothing to gain. We're not going anywhere, but we want to provide the individuals in your facility an opportunity to change their life, because that's what we've experienced. So with all that being said, what I would like to just, state, and then I'm going to be quiet because I know I got to turn over to Marcus, is like, so we've been given this information. For most of us, we serve our areas or our regions. So what do? Well, we take this back, right? We take this back to our subcommittees. And then we go and we get a plan. And that's the part I want to talk really clear about, because I have ideas, but my ideas are only a group conscience with me. And that gets weird. And so it is imperative that in March, when our region comes together once again as a subcommittee, that I bring this information and I say, look, you guys, here's all the stuff we can do. I mean, Denise, like we could form a writing steps in recovery program. We can provide a program to go back to the Georgia Department of Corrections. You know, I mean, perfect timing, you guys. We just did this massive, right before the pandemic, like a huge initiative to get people badged and got all these people badged, and then everything locked down. It was hilarious. So and then we're like, well, okay, start over, maintain the relationship and start over, right? So we can do that. We can go in, we can go back and get into facilities. We can work on getting in virtually. We can help you guys in your areas build up trusted servants again by how to make recovery look attractive. Like, what do you want to do? And then we as a Georgia Region H&I Subcommittee Group Conscience will decide and we will pick. And we'll do that to the best of our ability. So I'm grateful to sit in this chair today. I'm grateful to sit in this room today because I know the life-saving message of Narcotics Anonymous. I know it in my bones. And recovery and service and people like you all are the reason for that. So thank you for letting me share. And I want to open up the floor to Marcus.
Yeah, I
who's
think
out there.
Marcus, you want to raise your hand so you can, so the gentleman running the Zoom can
Marcus
find you
has-
and unmute you?
All right, got it. I'm coming right up in a second.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Addict named
And
Marcus. Can you all hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you, Marcus.
All right. Like I said before, I'm an addict named Marcus. I appreciate every information, every piece of information I heard thus far. So I'll keep it as brief as I possibly can as far as what direction the Georgia region went in. Right when the pandemic or COVID came, looking back on it now, and I was talking to Mary, that I'm very proud of the understanding that we understood that it was complex, but it was simply a state of life on life terms. Meaning that we as a panel never considered the idea of H&I not being done. We instantly started formulating plans on how to do it now. Just because we're used to in-person presentations, we went through the handbook and we formalized a plan that was very basic and at its core, the simplest and most direct to maintain relationships with facilities and to build new ones. Everything that Tom spoke on earlier, we grazed across those conversations, but we weren't there yet. And this is when it first happened. We're talking about 3 months after everything shut down. We just weren't there yet because as a region, we just started back meeting on Zoom and we had to get things together. So we just weren't in a position to plausibly make these offerings, I guess you could say, to facilities because we didn't understand exactly which way we were going to go. So we started with what we have dubbed right now as the NAH&IP, which is the Narcotics Anonymous Hospitals and Institutional Informational Pamphlet Program. A lot of big words, but just what it is that, and with just about 5 minutes left, I'm going to take 2 minutes to read you the introductory letter. And what this is a packet that we devised and created that we were able to touch many facilities to build and keep a relationship. And the introductory letter simply reads this. It says, this letter is to introduce you to the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous and one of the services we feel might be of benefit to addicts in your facility. Narcotics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women for whom drugs have become a major problem. By following the program of recovery offered in Narcotics Anonymous, our members have found a way to live clean as responsible, productive members of society. Narcotics Anonymous is an international fellowship with meetings in countless countries as well as this community. There are no dues or fees in Narcotics Anonymous. The primary purpose of all Narcotics Anonymous groups is to help addicts stay drug-free. One of the ways we do this is through hospitals and institutions subcommittees. H&I subcommittees bring presentations of Narcotics Anonymous recovery to addicts who do not have full access to regular Narcotics Anonymous meetings. Due to the current global health concerns, Narcotics Anonymous is actively seeking ways and means to continue to carry a message of NA recovery, regardless of restrictions on in-person presentations at this time. Our Narcotics Anonymous Hospitals and Institutions Informational Program is our most recent response. The NA IP is a process of assisting facilities with obtaining Narcotics Anonymous literature. We feel that our literature has value for addicts seeking recovery. We have found that beginning early to read Narcotics Anonymous literature is an important part of a personal program of recovery. And at the end, it says, please inform your NA member of any assistance required. So that was a beautifully written letter, but we didn't write it. The only thing that we put in there new was the part about the global health concern. We just went into our H&I handbook and we pulled out pieces of sample letters and we made a hybrid letter. So we were prepared for this, whether we knew it or not. We just had to take a look at the information that we already had, reconfigure it, and keep pushing forward. So once again, it wasn't a matter of if we could, it was stated earlier, of how do we continue our primary purpose as recovering addicts, which is stay clean first and carry the message, and in support of our traditions as far as carrying this message. We no matter what. So we immediately got into the solution, and that has been our backbone at this point. But at this time, and Mary spoke on it, with me, my term ending as chair and her coming in as chair, we're ready for the next layer as far as the technological advances that we've all gained as a region, as far as how to use Zoom, what to expect, and how to get this message continuously into prisons and facilities. And with that said, currently I live about 20 miles away from a prison that we actually were able to start a meeting about 2 years ago. And they have reached out for us to come back. But at this point, what they're requesting from us is not plausible, because they want something that we can't provide, which is weekly meetings at a specific time. And we're a working class community, and at that time frame, we're just not available. But this is the next layer to make sure they have literature. We're going to introduce them to the, I'm gonna get with the, forgot her name, I believe is Denise.
Denise, yeah.
Denise, okay, see how we can implement that. So I thank you all for your time, and I'm just looking forward to using all of these tools that have been provided to us today. And thanks for letting me share them.
Thank you,
Marcus.
Marcus. I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind emailing that letter, because I'd like to share that with the zone at our next zonal meeting, because I'm sure that there are many other regions and areas that could use that letter. So if you wouldn't mind emailing that to me, I would appreciate that. You know, because this is about resources, and that's a lot of what we're doing here. So I'm going to ask, is there anyone else online right now that has either a question or would like to share something? This is an opportunity for you guys. Any hands?
Not yet.
All right, no one online wants to share. Is there anyone in this room then that has anything they would like to share, any questions, concerns? Does everybody understand what the H&I Task Force does and who we are? Okay. All right, well, go ahead.
I'm Robert and I am the talking at it. And you know, I would just like to say to Mary Quinn and Marcus that you all are doing a great job. You know, thanks. I mean, I love the letter, how you all put the letter together, and you know, the fact that you all just you know, took it and started looking at ways that we can move forward and not allow the pandemic to hold us back.
That's right.
Because that's the same thing we had to do in PR. So
Yeah.
hey, good job for both of them. Good job.
John?
Hi, everybody, I'm John Manatic. I'm the AD of my region, and so I'm kind of speaking for the region when I say that our H&I subcommittee is one of these that are struggling, resuming where we left off. And my fiance was the chair of the regional H&I subcommittee, and starting even before, I mean, she started to notice a real drop off in attendance of people coming. And then when they turned to Zoom, when we had to go to Zoom, there was only a handful. And then eventually there would be like 2 or 3 area H&I subcommittee members that were showing up to the Zoom meeting. I mean, like, you didn't even have to leave your house and you could attend it. And she was really struggling getting people, just the subcommittee chairs, to come to the Zoom meeting. And so, and I know in my area in particular, we had a thriving H&I subcommittee. And I think it's still strong, but I know that they're in this process of coming back, of trying to get back to where they were. And I want to appreciate some of the input that I heard and the comments that I heard. Sorry, I missed the beginning of it, but I'm going to reach out to Tom, and I want to get and present that information to my regional H&I subcommittee chair, and Joanne, you know John.
Yeah, John,
So,
yeah, I'm sure he'll be happy.
yeah, and so just, what can I do to help him, to help my region, to help our areas? And I thank you guys.
Thank you, John. And I think, you know what, I'm gonna get to your question in a minute, but I think one of the biggest problems that we're having in H&I, and I've seen, especially since I moved from New York to Florida, is the lack of communication and lack of sometimes members understanding the importance of the regional subcommittee and even the area subcommittee meeting, and the problems that can occur when people don't attend those meetings because the communication gets broken down. Problems and solutions that can be shared don't get done because people are not attending the subcommittee meeting. And so this is an area that I think we struggled with way before COVID. When COVID came along, it got worse, and it's an area that somehow or another we need to, again, find a way to transmit to our fellowship to say, not only do we need you to do service, but we need you to be effective in communicating when you are doing service, as attending the subcommittee meetings and giving reports, not because of we want like you have to report to us that way, so that we can talk about problems and solutions and work them out together and have effective communication and strategize how best to serve the addict who still suffers. We can't do that without communication. So
I think one of the biggest problems in addicts in general have in all forms is, number one, the thought that I don't need help, I can do this myself. And then there's the I don't want to ask for help.
Well,
we all kind of hesitate to ask for help. I mean, I know I do. I know I can handle this.
Well, there's a certain amount of arrogance as well that has gone on, not only it's gone on in the Northeast as well, where, oh, well, they want us, so we're just going to sit around and wait for them to call us. When they're ready, they'll call us back. We got the good bag, so they're going to come to us when they're ready. Instead of realizing, no, these people went and found another bag somewhere else. They're not coming back. They're not coming back to you. And I hate to put it in those terms, but that's sometimes how you have to put it so people will understand that we're not we can be the best game in town, but unless we remind people we're the best game in town, they're going to find other places to go. So I'm sorry, the guy, I'm sorry.
Press Eric H online. Let me,
okay, Eric.
you unmute.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yes, my name is Eric. I'm an addict, and I feeling kind of funny about that little joke about the East Coast thing. But I thank God that I have to. We're not that arrogant, and we're not that bad. I'm going to share some of my unique experiences of being involved with H&I and what's going on with. I like that letter thing, and that can go along with the many more that Tom probably has. And thank everyone. I had my regional H&I subcommittee meeting earlier, and I was telling them earlier, this is exactly why that I love doing what that I do, because you people only care about solutions and trying to get things done. It's not about all that other stuff. It's about how do we get the message to the still sick and suffering addict who cannot come out to a regularly scheduled meeting. And I'm just blown away at how that we do this. My experience is that I was in the right position at the right time. When COVID first hit, I think my H&I area, we missed one meeting because we already, before the area even told us, we was in the facility and we got up and somebody had already had a Zoom thing and they was open to it and we was on and running with it. And went from that right into on the regional level that it had, then I moved over into that. And then we were already forming an ad hoc committee that was dealing with trying to figure out ways and means to get H&I, P&I working together and trying to find out ways to getting back into the prisons and doing things like that there. And it's just amazing on how that, and everything that everybody's saying, it's not just persistence. You got to get real creative here. You got to, and you got to stay at it because we still want to maintain good relationships, even if it don't work. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. We worked for 2 years, and all we got after 2 years of work, 2 regions, 4 subcommittees, and all we got in there was the introductory guide to Narcotics Anonymous, and that's all they would get. We sent a case to each one of the prisons, and we still are trying to do more, but we're in position, and we never. Well, if that's all that you want, we always try to maintain good connections and try and finding ways and means to get new contacts and find new ways to get in there. And we use all the, I mean, we just be constantly just trying to find ways to reach out, because we were using the prison part to try to get down to the county jails, because we could always go into the regular treatment facilities. I'm just going to make one other comment, and it's only because this was my experience, because my commitment that I have now. Sometime I was always aware that you can sign a waiver. It may not be as practical as it seems to have one person. If you got like, all right, I have a commitment, and they got them broken up into 3 different rooms, right? And it's not practical to be able to have where they're all in the room and have the camera on, because one person don't want to be seen or got to sit on one side of the room. So sometimes the camera's on and sometimes that it's not, and I don't even and I don't even question, because HIPAA is an individual thing, and I know facility has the right to waive that, but the individual does. And that's just some of my experience with it, and we just need to be careful on how that we do certain things, because people have a right to their privacies, and this is even when it comes to going into the prisons also, because everybody don't want their business known out there, and people have the right to their privacy. That's just some of my experience with H&I. It's always good to see Tom and Joanne and other people that I work with throughout doing my travels and doing H&I, and thank you for allowing me to share. And I want to thank you guys for putting this on. This was really, really interesting, always informative. My name is Eric. I'm an addict. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Eric. And Eric, I like to personally thank you for being part of the zone. I didn't mean to, and it's not every area in Greater New York region has been like lackadaisical and resuming H&I. And so but it's pocket areas that seem to like kind of, be waiting and we have to end. But I will say that, the addict who still suffers is still waiting to hear the message. There's a potential addicts out there that have not heard our message. And as members of H&I, it's incumbent upon us to press forward and utilize the information that was given to everyone today. I hope you've been blessed by it. And thank you for allowing me to facilitate and be part of this today. Thank you all.
Thank you.